Well, blessings upon you today. Welcome to our Cornerstone Word for the week. It's our weekly Bible study that also incorporates the upcoming Sunday School study as set forth by the International Sunday School Curriculum. I'm Pastor A.T. Curry, and it really is a joy and delight to share with you in the study of the Word. I'm super excited about our study today as we begin another mini series, if you will, dealing with worship, sacrifices, and offerings, particularly as demonstrated in the Old Testament. Whenever you read and study passages out of the Old Testament dealing with worship, sacrifices, and offerings, and of course, sacrifices and offerings are a part of worship, you see it in the light of giving us kind of a precursor of really that which Christ does for us in the New Testament. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he sacrificed, he gave his only begotten son, who turned around and sacrificed, gave his life as an offering on our behalf, so that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And so we're looking in this mini series at worship, sacrifices, and offerings. And it's of particular significance to us, additionally, not only in the light of seeing it as a precursor as to what Christ does for us in the New Testament and how we ought to have an even better appreciation when you think about that great offering, that great sacrifice, that ultimate sacrifice that was given. But it also shines light, particularly this passage today, on the children of God, sometimes referred to as the children of Israel. As I've said in previous studies, I don't like to use the word children of Israel much, although it is interchangeable with the children of God, because so many people, because of what's going on in the world today and all of the news you hear about what's going on in the geographical place of Israel, they mistake children of Israel listed in the Bible as people who perhaps might live in Israel literally right now. When you talk about the children of Israel, it's more so a covenant name than a geographical place, particularly in the context of our study today, which is Exodus chapter 19, verses 1 through 14. And so children of Israel, sometimes called children of God, etc., is the focus. So you have to look at these passages in the Old Testament as our spiritual ancestors, and then, of course, when Christ comes, we move from a Judeo background to a Judeo-Christian setting and motif now. So we are what you call Judeo-Christians. And so we do not negate the Old Testament. Jesus said, I didn't come to turn that over. I came to fulfill what was in the Old Testament. And so we look at our studies in the Old Testament in that light. And so we use that word interchangeably, children of Israel, children of God. But again, it's not necessarily someone who just moves to Israel and all of a sudden they're the children of Israel in the Bible. No, it's not just a geographical location, but it's a people, and particularly what you call a covenant people, children of Israel, children of God. This study today has been titled in some Sunday school commentaries as a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Again, we're looking at Exodus chapter 19, verses 1 through 14. It talks about the children of Israel, the people of God, coming to a mountain place. That first verse of chapter 19, and we'll look at the King James Version today as well as the Messenger translation as well. It begins by saying, in the third month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. The third month of what? The third month of them being led out, delivered out of bondage in Egypt under Pharaoh's rule. You remember how Moses was called upon to do that. Moses did not want to face Pharaoh. He had plenty of excuses. He does not speak well. He had a felony on his record. On and on. The Lord says, no, you go, Moses, and you tell Pharaoh what I'm telling you. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go. They eventually get to the Red Sea. Red Sea's in front of them, the mountains on either side of them, Pharaoh's army behind them. They were in a boxed-in situation. The people cried to Moses, we could have stayed in Egypt and died there. You brought us out here. People were always complaining, you know. Again, they were our ancestors. And so they were complaining, and so much of our ancestors has carried on to us today in the church. And so they started complaining to Moses, and Moses takes it to the Lord. The Lord tells him, go on across. I'll give you safe travel. And so, of course, the Lord parts the Red Sea, both sides. Moses stretches out his arm. People go across safely. Pharaoh's army pursues them with vengeance, and the waters come back, and Pharaoh's army, as the song would say, Pharaoh's army, they drowned in the Red Sea. And so the people are on their way. Where are they on their way to? They're on their way to Promised Land. And so it's the third month after this takes place. The people see the grandeur of God, what God can do through his preacher, his prophet Moses. So they're on their way. And again, verse 1, out of the land of Egypt. And then this particular day, it says the same day again, the last clause of that 19th verse, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. Now, Sinai, of course, is a mountain. It's a mountain. It's a mountain. And that word wilderness may cause some people to picture in their mind a desert type place. And I don't know how common it is for mountains to be in deserts, but it's not a desert place here. It's a wilderness could also refer to a grazing land, a grazing land. And so it's a wilderness, but it's not necessarily a desert. And they come up to this mountain called Sinai, Mount Sinai. And when they get there, a mountaintop experience takes place. Mountaintops in the Bible, Old Testament as well as New Testament, always has a significant event associated with them. So many examples of that. You remember when God extends his covenant to Noah, it's on Mount Ararat. Matter of fact, that's where the ark eventually settles after the great flood. There are always great experiences between God and his chosen vessel on mountains. You remember when Abraham was called, Father Abraham, father of the faithful, was called to sacrifice his son Isaac. Where does it take place? It takes place on a mountain, Mount Moriah. You remember when Elijah confronts the prophets of Baal? He confronts them on the mountain, and on and on. Elijah defeated the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, of course, but Jesus is transfigured on the mountain himself, and then certainly on Good Friday, he's crucified at a place called Golgotha, because it looks like a skull, but it's actually Mount Calvary. And so mountains have been significant places in history where God has spoken and moved in a great way to his vessels and to his people. It was on a mountain when Moses receives the Ten Commandments. Also, it takes place at Mount Sinai that we're looking at today, later on in Exodus 20 or so. Now, Mount Sinai, of course, is unique in regards to all of those mountains I just previously mentioned, in that Mount Sinai, as archaeologists paint the picture for us, looked like literally a preaching podium in a church pulpit. It went up and then up. And so it just looked like a place where God would speak to his people from. And so sure enough, they're traveling. They're out of Egypt now. And whenever you look at Egypt and their journey, you have to put yourself in their place. You may not be in Egypt physically, but you are in bondage one way or another. We all are in bondage, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So if there's no other bondage than just the bondage of sin, you are in bondage wherever you are that is outside of where God would have you to be. And so some people, you're in bondage. It may not be Egypt, but you're in financial bondage. You're in a debt bondage situation. Some people are in bondage in bad relationships, and bondage with sickness, bondage with health, bondage with relationships. I know a whole lot of people are in bondage with a bad attitude, a jealous spirit, an envious spirit, a non-forgiving spirit, bondage to a painful past, bondage to depression, you name it. Everyone is experiencing some type of bondage. Wherever you are, whatever you are experiencing, may not be Egypt, but if it's not where God would have you to be, you are in bondage. On their third month out of bondage, the children of Israel were gone forth. They get to the wilderness of Sinai. Verse 2, for they were departed from Rephidim, Rephidim. That PH has a sound, Rephidim, and will come to the desert of Sinai again. Not desert like you might think of the Sahara Desert, but desert in terms of a grazing land of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. Rephidim. Well, what is the significance of Rephidim? Rephidim is a place they have to pass through on their way out of bondage. After they cross the Red Sea, after Moses leads them there, they get to a place where they've run out of water, and the people start complaining again. And they complain to the Pastor Moses. And, matter of fact, they start talking about stoning Moses. That's how ridiculous the people can get. And now they had already seen what God had done with Moses and for them at the Red Sea, right? And so another little thing comes along, they lose their mind and talk about stoning Moses. Moses takes his complaint and petition for the people to the Lord. Lord tells him, Moses, strike the rock. And those of you that might be familiar with the story, Moses strikes the rock and water gushes out. Miraculous thing. The people see it, see what God is doing through Moses and for the people. And so it's after they've departed from there that they end up in the desert of Sinai. And verse 3 says, and Moses went up unto God, not the people, but Moses, the prophet. He goes up to God, and the Bible says, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, again, God speaks to people often in the Bible through mountain. Mountain is significant in certain events in the Bible. God calls unto him out of this mountain that looks like a preaching podium in a pulpit, speaks to Moses, saying, thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, again, children of Israel, children of God, house of Jacob, they're used interchangeably. Again, that children of Israel covenant name, not necessarily the location today. Thou shalt say to the house of Jacob and tell the children of Israel, again, verse 4, ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians. Again, you just saw what happened at the Red Sea, just 3 months. And now you're losing your mind. You lost your mind over the water. You saw what I did at Rephidim. And now you're here. So listen, he says, you've seen what I did unto the Egyptians and how I bear you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself. Don't skip over that. He said, how I bear you on eagle's wings. Why of all things would the Lord use this illustration of him providing and caring for his children as an eagle bearing its eaglets, its children, on its wings? Well, birds protect and care for their children under their wings and in their claws. So birds hold on to the underwings of birds. But the eagle is the only bird that we're aware of that bears its children on its wings. And so while the eagle soars, the only way you can get to its children is to go through the eagle. Other birds, the birds are under their wings or in their claws. And so arrows and what have you could reach the children. But the eagle, the Lord says, I'm carrying you like an eagle carries its young. You're on my wings. So nothing can happen to you when you trust in me. Nothing can happen to you that can bypass me first. It's got to go through me to get to you. God says that's what I do for those who trust in me. He says, I did all of that. And then verse 5, now therefore, if ye will obey my voice, indeed, keep my covenant. Tell them, Moses, tell the people what I'm telling you. If ye will obey my voice, indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And verse 6, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. Kingdom of priests. We all are priests. We all are priests. I know so often you may think of the priest or the preacher, the pastor, as one who gives oversight to people in the church, etc. But we all are part of the priesthood of believers. And so you are a priest yourself. Ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Messenger translation says, as Moses went up to meet God, God called down to him from the mountains, speak to the house of Jacob, tell the people of Israel, you have seen what I did to Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. If you will listen obediently to what I say and keep my covenant. Covenant, not a contract, but a covenant. A contract is an agreement between two mutual parties, and they both are exchanging something of equal value one to another. That's a contract between mutual parties. A covenant is an agreement between non-mutual parties. There's one superseding party that is doing something on behalf of the lesser party. It's a covenant. God says, I don't have contracts with my people. I have covenants with my people. There's so much more I can do for you than you could ever do for me. And so he says this is going to be a covenant. Again, the Messenger translation, the whole earth is mine to choose from, but you're special, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. This is what I want you to tell the people of Israel. Moses came back, verse 7, and called the elders of Israel together and set before them all these words which God had commanded him. And then listen to the response of the people, verse 8, and all the people, it was unanimous, and all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord hath spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. Notice the Lord did not give the instructions to the people to give to Moses, but he gives the instructions to Moses to give to the people. Verse 9, and the Lord said unto Moses, lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and believe thee forever. Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. The Lord says, I'll come to thee in a thick cloud, not in some other symbol, because we know that when the people were in bondage in Egypt, they were exposed to some idol gods, and sometimes when a person is in bondage, you pray for them, you fast on their behalf, the Lord brings them out, and next thing you turn around and they back in the relationship you just prayed them out of. It's amazing how some people can be delivered and then go back to what was killing them before. So the Lord is not speaking to them in any image. He comes to them in a cloud. He doesn't even speak to them through the mountain itself, because some people even worship mountains then. He says, I'm going to speak to a cloud that will evaporate. And this will be a sign to them, Moses. This will be encouragement to them again, just as I did at the Red Sea, just as I did at Rephidim. I'm going to do it here at Sinai. And this will also be a sign that my hand is on the prophet Moses. Yeah. And so that ending of verse 9 again, and Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord, that that they would agree wholeheartedly. It was unanimous to be in covenant with the Lord, to be obedient to what the Lord says. Verse 10, King James Version, and the Lord said unto Moses, go unto the people and sanctify them. Sanctify them. Prepare yourselves for what the Lord has for you. Sanctify yourself. The Lord tells Moses, today, don't be the type of person that's always getting ready to do something. He said, no, sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes. Verse 11, and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Sanctify yourselves. It suggests to us that when we are preparing ourselves for sincere worship and sincere service for the Lord, you ought not do it any kind of way. You ought not trifle over the things of God, the responsibility of Christian church membership. But whatever you do for the Lord, you'll do it the best that you can. Sanctify, sacrifice, bring your best offerings to the Lord. Again, it's a precursor, the Old Testament, of what Christ does for us in the New Testament. We worship him, sacrifices and offerings, Old and New Testament. Then Christ comes and he blesses us with supreme sacrifice, gives his own life that we might have life and that life more abundantly. He is the supreme offering we ought to be emulating. And so, tell the people, Moses, and I'm going to come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Verse 12, and thou shalt set bounds. There are boundaries with God. Thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mountain, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death. And so the things of God are sacred things. Sacred things. Sanctify yourself. Purify yourself, starting today and tomorrow, days to come. Sanctify yourself, purify yourself, get yourself ready for worship before Sunday morning. Worship the Lord during the week in your private meditations, in your prayers, and your daily devotions, your reading of the Psalms, your Bible study. Sanctify yourselves so that God's will for your life can be manifested in your living through your worship, your sacrifices, and your giving. It's a matter of life and death. Whoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death. Verse 13, there shall not an hand touch it. Talking about the mountain, the things of God. But he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount. Again, the sacredness of things of God. Verse 14, and Moses went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. Washing their clothes here is symbolic of a part of the purification process. It's an outward showing of that which ought to be taking place with an inward showing. They washed their clothes. Are your sheets washed and clean? That's an old song of the church. Yeah. Purify yourselves so that you can receive what the Lord has in store for you. What an awesome study today. Thank God we are part of a kingdom of priests. We are, in fact, priests. We are part of a holy nation. Next week, we'll look at Exodus chapter 25. Exodus chapter 25, verses 1 through 9. And then chapter 26, verse 1, and verses 31 through 37. Next week, Exodus chapter 25, verses 1 through 9, chapter 26, verse 1, and verses 31 through 37, talking about a space for God. A space for God. I pray you've been blessed by the lesson today. I look forward to seeing you this coming Sunday morning. It's a bowling day at Cornerstone, and so come on out at 9 a.m. for worship and fellowship, and then we'll be headed over to the bowling alley on Highway 34, headed toward Noonan, Georgia, and it's going to be a wonderful time of fellowship. We'll be there from like 11 to 1 or so, and so come on out and be with us. Again, worship 9 a.m., bowling 11 a.m. I'm Pastor Curry. Thank you for your time today. Pray you've been blessed. Look forward to seeing you real soon. We're at Cornerstone, 640 Ebenezer Church Road on the Fayetteville Peachtree City line. Until next time, God bless you, and be sweet.